Good morning. It's Wednesday, December 9th, 2020, 9 o'clock. We're in the Center Hearing Room for Board of Commissioners meeting. We always start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item is always public comment. Nobody has signed up this morning, so we have three presentations. And the first one has to do with the circuit court operations. We have all our big shots here. Judge Tracy Prohl, now I lied. Sheriff Joe Cass, not here. And District Attorney, well, Your Honor.
Commissioner Brentano, Commissioner Cameron, board members. My name is Tracy Prohl. I'm the presiding judge for Marion County. At 4 o'clock on March 17th, I gathered my fellow judges on the 5th floor of the courthouse to review the first Chief Justice order regarding the reduction of court operations due to the pandemic. At that point, I sent home half of the judges, and we sent home over half of our staff. The following days, we went through the building trying to determine how we could socially distance, how we could continue to do jury trials, how we could continue, frankly, to do business. We quickly marked off courtrooms so that it was clear where people could sit 6 feet apart. We pulled benches out of courtrooms to put chairs where the gallery used to be. That was where the jury was going to sit. We did everything we could to ensure that justice could continue to move through Marion County. What we were able to accomplish very quickly, and I would say most counties around the state could not do this, we were able to accomplish a system in which we continued to do jury trials in criminal cases, mostly in custody, but some out. We continued to do justice for families in dependency and delinquency cases. We continued to monitor and help domestic relations cases progress through the system. And we, as much as we could, helped civil cases move through. We were not able to do trials, jury trials, or bench trials for civil cases. But the criminal cases was really what our focus was on. These were folks that were in your jail. Folks in your jail that was going to be overcrowded, and I'll let the sheriff talk about his efforts, but very quickly he had to reduce numbers because they needed to single cell all of their inmates. There were discussions with the judges about pretrial release and expanding our use of the pretrial release program. The judges and the district attorney's office and the defense bar worked very quickly together. What I was saying about why many counties around the state could not do what we did is because we had built the relationships before the pandemic. We had relationships between our defense bar, our sheriff, our prosecutor, and we were so lucky to have already developed that relationship that we have been on a Wednesday call at 9:30, that's why I've got to be done by 9:30 today, since March 17th. And on the Wednesday call is Paige Clarkson, myself, the commander of the jail, Ted Larson, two more of DA Clarkson's deputies, the heads of both defense consortiums, MCAD and the Public Defender's Office. And we have problem solved how to continue to do jury trials. A criminal defendant who is held in custody has a right to trial within 60 days of being arrested. Before COVID, we struggled to meet that mark. But you have to. If you don't, they get released. And these are folks, the folks that we had come to remain in the jail were folks that needed to be in the jail pre-trial. And so many counties released them. They released them because they could not and would not do trials. We weren't willing to release them, and we weren't willing to hold them past their 60 days. The Chief Justice and the presiding judges were on a call also every week on a Tuesday. And we had lots of discussions about good cause to hold someone past their 60 days. You can hold someone by statute pre-COVID up to 180 days. And so many counties just automatically used COVID as a good cause to set to 180 days. I felt like we didn't need to do that. We were able to socially distance. We had 3 courtrooms in the building that we could socially distance jurors. Of course, when you do a jury trial now in Marion County, it takes 5 courtrooms just to start it. Because we have to socially distance all the folks that come in for jury duty. So the entire 5th floor is now used as jury assembly. 3 courtrooms, a conference room, and what was originally the jury assembly room. So we were able to do it. We had planned, and we were able to do it. The legislature then gave us authority to hold folks for 240 days in custody. And we just felt like this was not in the best interest of our community and was not in the best interest of the defendants. So we pushed and we tried those cases. I have not yet, on a motion of any party or on my own motion, held someone past the time when they were willing to stay in custody. Many people waive their right to have a trial within 60 days because they want their attorneys to be able to do additional investigation. But if the defendant demanded a trial within 60 days or in custody, if someone's in custody in an institution, like in the Oregon State Penitentiary, they have a right to trial within 90 days. I have not bumped, if you will, any trials in Marion County. We have, on July 1st was kind of the deadline when the Chief Justice allowed us to expand our operations from the original, what I would call shutdown. And so we entered what we would call phase 2. And phase 2 is how do we further expand, given these precautions that we know we have to take. And what we wanted to do was start dealing with our out-of-custody criminal cases. So we came to the county, frankly, and we asked for your help. We could not continue to do in-custody jury trials within 60 days and do our out-of-custody criminal trials, because again, only 3 courtrooms in a building of 12 courtrooms could we do jury trials. So in conversations, frankly, with Jan Fritz, we were able to secure the Grand Theater across the street from the courthouse, and we did trials there for 6 weeks from July to August. We then did another batch of trials in October to November. We went through over 600 cases, over 350 defendants went through the Grand. 73% of those were changes of plea and sentencing, so we were just able to move those cases to conclusion. 11% went to trial at the Grand. 12%, only 44 defendants failed to appear. We thought that was amazing. What you've had in other counties is a complete breakdown of the criminal justice system in which the defendants are not in contact with their attorneys because there are no ramifications for that. There's no ramification for a failure to appear. There's no ramification for not moving your case forward. But here, there is. You will go to jail if you're not in contact with your attorney because we had the Grand. They were required to appear. If they didn't, we'd issue a warrant. So they did appear, and we were so grateful that is how this all worked out. There was a remaining 4% of the trials came back to their judges because they were multi-day trials, and we couldn't do that at the Grand without kind of compromising the volume that we were trying to achieve. One very critical piece of that is initially I was very desperately trying not to make the Grand an issue for the sheriff's office, but of course I think on day 1 we realized we need a deputy, and I very much appreciate that the sheriff then gave us a deputy also at the Grand to provide security, and that system has really assisted us. We have now, through the county, those 2 6-week blocks were paid, I believe, through COVID funds that the county received. We need to do it again. And we now have reserved the Grand from mid-February to the end of March. And I believe that is just with county funds, hoping that there will be another COVID relief bill that will provide COVID funds to cover it. But we are so grateful, and frankly, it is that is helping this criminal justice system in Marion County be so secure and helping to move those cases through. So we are planning on that. We have another case. There is an out in the presiding judge order, my order, that says if you have a case that we're not allowing to proceed, whether it be a criminal case or a civil case that we're not allowing to proceed to trial, you can send a motion to me for an in-person trial. And we allowed that in one civil case that was, it frankly started in 2008. It's a very complicated, multi-lawyers from multi-states, complicated civil probate matter. We rented Mission Mill for 5 days, and Judge Bennett did a bench trial at Mission Mill, and that also was paid by COVID funds from the county. Again, we're on a weekly call, continue to be on a weekly call with the DA, the jail commander, and the public defenders. We tremendously expanded our use of remote hearings. We're utilizing WebEx for domestic relations, juvenile dependencies, protective orders, probate matters, civil cases, landlord-tenant cases that are allowed to proceed, and small claims. I have, in November, one of the things that we did to accomplish all of that is Marion County is what we call an individual docket county, where each judge does a little bit of everything, and you basically get your slice of the pie. So everybody's responsible for their own docket. We had to move to what we call a master docket system, where there would be a core of judges that were trying certain kinds of cases, because I needed to rely on judges to be here to try those criminal cases, and we needed the experts, the judges that were really expert in civil cases to help move those, the judges that were expert in domestic relations to just plow through those. So we moved to this master docket from July to November 1st. And frankly, because some judges remained from home and they weren't available to be in person in the courthouse. We were able to stop that system November 1st and went back to our individual dockets, because now we have all learned how to be remote and how to work through a criminal trial with social distancing and protecting both the jurors and the parties. So now we are in what I would call phase 3, which is back to our individual dockets and what I would say is our normal until the pandemic is over. Certainly, then we had another issue where the governor has put us on the freeze, and Marion County, unfortunately, is in the extreme risk, I think, still today. And so we are under the freeze and additional reductions to our operations. Those are mostly didn't affect us because we had already moved so much of our docket to be remote by video or by phone. And I was very afraid it was going to affect our ability to do the criminal trials. We did cancel the trials. It was like midweek of our criminal trials at the Grand. We canceled 3 days of our trials at the Grand. But I do believe that because we are utilizing it as a court facility, that it is under the CJO, the Chief Justice Order, and not the emergency or the executive order of the governor. So we'll talk with the Grand about, hopefully we won't still be in a freeze in February, but if we are, I do believe that we'll still be able to continue with those trials at the Grand, and we're hoping to do that. The reduction in court operations is now, instead of being able to do 3 jury trials in the building at a time, I'm only willing to do 2, because two of the courtrooms that we could use are on the same floor. And I don't think it's appropriate to have 2 jury trials going on the same floor at the same time during the freeze. It's just too many people moving around on that floor. So we have a courtroom on the first floor and 2 courtrooms on the second floor, but I'll only utilize 1. So 2 jury trials going, very hopeful that I still don't have to bump any trials. But the other piece is now we certainly are starting to have issues with staff. First, we have staff who are using childcare leave. You have more staff who've been exposed. I'd like to knock on wood if it's real, to say we've had no COVID cases within the courthouse. We've had people have to leave and be on quarantine because of exposure to outside or because someone has come in and exposed us. So those staff issues are going to impact our ability to do as much work as we'd like to do. Just you don't have someone to man the courtroom. So I envision that may get worse as the holiday, as we start seeing those numbers increase and we have to quarantine, ask more of our workers to quarantine. Multnomah County last week had 50 of their employees and judges out at one time. Yamhill County had 60% of their employees out and then decided we're just sending everybody home. We can't do that. We don't have enough laptops. We have over 100 employees. We just don't have the resources to send them all home. So we're very much trying to socially distance. We wear masks. We have, in addition to that, we have barriers, doing everything we can to keep the court running, keep our staff safe, and keep the public safe as they come into the building. One piece that I did want to just talk about a little bit is what I would call the waive. There are things that we are not able to do, and those are jury trials in civil cases. Most civil cases resolve on their own. But if they don't have a trial date, if they don't have something saying you got to resolve by this date or you're going to trial, it's very hard to give the momentum to a case to get it to resolve. So we do have a large number of civil cases that are building, and that is going to be part of our waive. Certainly another part of our waive is going to be the landlord-tenant cases. Those certainly, if it's a failure to pay rent, we have not been moving forward on any of those cases. Even if someone files in violation of the order, we won't move forward on them. It's supposed to, the moratorium is supposed to expire at the end of the month unless the governor calls a special session and they extend it. But the payment is not due. Even if that goes away, they don't have to pay until March. Huge wave in March is what we're envisioning. We're also, for some reason, a lot of the small claims have not been filed timely. I think folks didn't know that they could. There's a statute of limitations. So while they may not have filed when they wanted to, they're going to have to file at some point, and I envision that there will be a wave of small claims cases. But generally, filings are down. Our criminal filings are significantly down, and DA Clarkson could tell you that they have really changed their way of looking at cases and making sure that they are only filing the cases that are really necessary to file for public safety or to get services to a family. So our criminal filings are down, and I think that has also assisted us in being able to continue to do the criminal load, if you will. Post-convictions are up because of Oregon's non-unanimous jury statute that was overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. So we have, frankly, a wave of what we call Ramos cases. The Ramos cases are coming back, and frankly, that's difficult because a lot of them are in custody in institutions that are now being sent back to the jail. So we're trying to get through those as quickly as possible, but that is significant. Post-convictions are up 131%, so that's what that was. And then habeas cases. Those are cases where inmates are complaining about their treatment in an institution. Habeas cases are up 94% because they're inmates who are concerned about COVID exposure. And so these are things that we're really having to utilize our judicial resources for, and we'll continue to have a wave that we have to be able to handle. The domestic relations have really been kind of ticking along because we've been able to use remote, and filings are down over 15%. Juvenile court filings. And this number, frankly, was shocking to me, and it is not a good number. Juvenile dependency cases are down 35%. That's not a good thing. What that means is there are children in homes that are not being protected. Teachers are not seeing them. School resources officers are not seeing. Community members are not seeing them. Doctors are not seeing them. So there is abuse in homes that's not being reported or found. So while the numbers are down and that helps us handle this load, I think that does not reflect well for our community. So that's something that we're very concerned about and working on to see are there ways that we can do some reach-ins or more, really, it's going to take schools reopening to see if those numbers are really valid or if there's a huge concern. But I just wanted to just kind of highlight those things that the court is facing, and happy to take any questions. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judge Paul, thank you for your leadership and all the things that you described. And I know the sheriff's over here, he's going to talk next probably. That Marion County is unique. You're right. That's what you described. And I know in this office, we haven't closed. We had our doors closed for a little while, but we're still letting people in. If you noticed today when you came in, we have a little shield up there and we're checking temperatures. And I just really appreciate you and the leadership that you give over in the court system and all the people that work there that have put their lives, it's like you said, childcare, all those things that have been difficult for people during this pandemic. And I think the public doesn't really realize when they have a pandemic, and we all are faced with something personally during this pandemic that's really stressful for us. But you think about the criminal justice system and the impact it's had on the criminal justice system, and what you just described, they keep the courts going, is an amazing thing. And I know other counties are watching, and the state has been watching what you've been doing over there. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's good.
I kind of want to repeat the leadership thing. I wrote down a few words as you were talking that seemed to describe swift, fair, pragmatic, flexible.
Right.
And it seems like you've really taken steps to deal with whatever's dealt to you. I should say this after the sheriff speaks, but I'm so pleased, especially with the criminal, I guess with the criminal, there has to be consequence for your actions, and this makes sure that happens. And you see what happens in counties and areas where there is no consequence. And thank you for help keeping us all safe. Sheriff Cast. Oh, excuse me.
I did want one comment. You said hopefully the freeze will be in February, and I think we're going to hear from Katrina after this presentation.
And she's going to announce it's all over?
Oh, no. Everything, you see this cases going up. I don't think we see relief for, March, April, right? And so it's going to be a struggle. It seems like we've been going at this forever, and then the wildfires and everything else. So hang on, and if there's anything we can do to continue to encourage our resources like Jan's provided, we want to be there for you. So.
Thank you.
Sheriff Cast?
Yes, for the record, I'm Joe Cast, I'm the sheriff here, and I didn't have a whole lot to say. I just wanted to come in and support what the presiding judge is saying. The collaboration, the teamwork from all of the agencies or all of the departments that are involved in this has been the reason that this has been successful to this point. With Judge Prawl obviously taking the lead on a lot of this, but Paige Clarkson from the DA's office, the defense attorneys group that helps out with these things, our jail, everybody stepping up, the JSU department, everybody stepping up, and including the board's office and Jan Fritz, bluntly, has been really helpful in making sure that all of this continues on. And it's a testament to the relationships that we've already had over the years and the desire to try to serve the public and the community as much as everybody's involved in that. So I don't have any other specifics. I just wanted to be here to answer questions too, if you guys have anything else.
And again, Sheriff, thank you, and Commander Woods, or Undersheriff Wood, whatever his name was. Commander Sheriff, right? Call him Commander Sheriff when he was doing both. Undersheriff Wood and the whole Public Safety Council and the pretrial release that we set up, 2.5 years ago to start a test. Had we not been forward thinking in that area, this would have been even more difficult. And your, commander at the jail, and you, when the pandemic first hit, probably in February or March, you were right here in front of us saying we need to suspend our jail management plan and have flexibility. Forward thinking got us to that position of where we could, have flexibility to do some of the things that the judge talked about. So again, good credit, thinking forward and taking initiative, being creative, has really made a difference in our public safety system.
Absolutely.
We got a lot of work to do in the future, and we need to get funded on some things that we keep getting not funded on. We're not going to get into that today, but we will soon when we start to go next door or down the street. That's what you can do when you retire. Go lobby for public safety dollars.
I might get a lick or two in, you don't.
I know you have.
Well, thank you both for coming in this morning, and it's repeating, but thank you both for the leadership, the great leadership you're exhibiting.
Thank you so much.
5 minutes to your 9:30 call.
Oh, yeah, we should have talked a little longer. All right, our next item says Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. I see Renata Wakely is here. Good morning.
Good morning. I may be here, a bit of a surprise for Commissioner Brentano. Hello, Commissioner. The COG Board has asked me to come and present an award and certificate for your service to you today. Earlier this year, the COG Board presented the Lifetime Achievement Award at our annual dinner for Commissioner Brentano, but they also felt it was very important for us to come to you and present in front of your fellow commissioners and some of your peers. Chair Frankie did wish to be here today, so I'm sorry that she's not here. I'm just going to say a few words. For more than 20 years, you have made a direct and meaningful difference through your dedication and continued support of the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments by participating on the Board of Directors, and for more than 40 years of service to the region by participating on various other COG Board committees and programs. Your ideas, input, experience, and enthusiasm were most helpful and have assisted us in making better decisions for our region. As the COG Board representative, first for the small cities of Marion County, selected by your peers, and later for Marion County, your voice served to represent not only your community, but the other communities in Marion County, as well as the county itself. We cannot express enough the impact you have had on the region through your participation as a founding member of the Valley Development Initiatives and Revolving Loan Fund Board since 1983. Little breath. In my 15 years of service at COG and with you on our COG board and the VDI board, I have appreciated and respected your honest, hard-hitting questions with sincere interest in representing Marion County. You have made me a better employee, and I imagine you've done the same for other employees in the interest of your community, Marion County, and the region. So on behalf of the COG board and our employees, we want to thank you for your service. And I have a certificate for you today. Thank you.
Renata, thank you. Natasha, are you going to take a picture? Can we socially distance? Oh, okay.
Yes, give me that.
Does this work? We'll be socially distant. I'm just oh, yeah, about 3 feet each. Well, thank you. No, really, this means so much to me. Thank you.
Take 2 flashes.
Oh, yeah. So you see my eyes. How can you see? How can you smile in these things? Thank you. You know, this could scare you all. They gave me that award at the annual meeting, and I had a terrific speech, probably about a half hour. So maybe this is my opportunity. No, I won't. But I left out all the good stuff. But the Council of Governments has been important to me since my years as mayor of Sublimity. As a small city, they so filled in the gaps that volunteer mayors and councils and from planning and other services, and I truly enjoyed it and continued on here. I actually served as board chair twice. I would like to say the second time was better than the first, but they were plenty glad the second term was over. I know that. Sometimes I think I caused more trouble than help, but I think you're referring to that, Renata, and I hope you were. Hard-hitting questions, but I do try to look for the how it helps and how it hurts and make sure we've discussed it. So thank you so much. This means a lot to me.
This is just the letter from shared. It's signed by the COG board chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we can quit now.
I'm glad some other commissioner's going to take your place there because you set a high bar. It's not gonna be me, right? Didn't we
is going
decide
to
it
do
wasn't
it?
gonna be me?
Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it's incoming commissioner.
Okay.
Right.
We were supposed to tell them, so I hope we decided, or you
We haven't
decided.
quite finalized all that.
All right, well, thank you again. And next is a COVID-19 update. Katrina Rothenberger, good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Renee. Morning, Katrina Rothenberger, Public Health Division Director for Marion County Health and Human Services. As of today, December 9th, we have 10,786 cases of COVID since the beginning of the pandemic. 172 people have died in Marion County, and over 170,000 tests have been performed. And we are currently monitoring 56 people who are admitted to the hospital. Region 2, Marion, Pole, Cam Hill, Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln, this is the hospital region. They have 653 occupied non-ICU beds and 134 available. And 56 ICU beds available and 71 are occupied. And this information was updated yesterday on the Oregon Health Authority website.
Wait, that didn't sound right. So there's 71, 71 available that aren't used, and 56 are being used, so there's 130 some.
Of the ICU beds, yes, there are 71 that are occupied and 56 of those are available.
So over half anyway. Okay, thank you.
So I reported today that we've performed over 170,000 tests in Marion County, and this is a change in how I've been reporting the testing previously because we're now reporting a test-based percent positivity and number of tests, and it was previously person-based. So no matter how many tests you or me took, I only counted once in that numerator and denominator. But now, people are getting tested multiple times because of where they work and their exposure levels, and so now all of those tests are being counted in the numbers that we report every day. This information is updated on our website and on the Oregon Health Authority website as well. What this means is that our percent positivity rate that has dropped a little bit, but we're still in Marion County slightly higher than the state percent positivity rate. So we're at 8.5% currently, and the state's at 5.6%. In Marion County, our cases over the last 2 weeks increased 18% over the 2-week period prior. And the percent of these positive tests do continue to be higher in Marion County than in the rest of Oregon. And the bulk of our cases are still coming from the Woodburn, Central Salem, Northeast Salem, and Brooks zip codes. Because of the change in how we're reporting testing, we're also no longer able to report the testing levels for each zip code. So this has been a change to the statewide database that has removed this information, so we're no longer able to share and report that. We do still have the incidence rate by zip code, but the testing levels, we do not currently have.
Excuse me. You have the incident levels, but not the testing?
That's correct.
Can you explain the difference?
So what that means is we know the number of new cases. We have the positive tests by zip code, but we don't know how many people in that community have actually been tested. So the percent positivity by zip code is not available because that data is no longer available to us in the state system.
Wow. Whose decision was that, the state's?
There's been a number of updates to our statewide database system called Opera over the last few weeks to make it more operational. It has been overloaded with the negative test results, and so they've been offloading some of the information to make it faster so that we can actually call people who have tested positive. This is just another one of those changes that has occurred in the past couple days.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, Katrina, one of the things we've been doing with our Tuesday morning call and our community partners is pushing more tests into that area. So we're really not going to be able to see that we're testing a lot, even though there are more cases there. But we're also we won't be able to say in this Woodburn area we're at a 15% positivity rate. Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct. We'll know the positivity rate for.
Countywide.
Yes, for countywide and for a specific event, but it won't be reflective of that community or that zip code.
Okay.
Yes, just another,
Well, then I might.
We make
add-
decisions based on facts and figures, but now we're taking, never mind.
Because I was going to bring it up at the end, that I'm disappointed when you mentioned the North Marion County still the worst area where we've really concentrated so much effort, and now it's going to be even harder to isolate, maybe if I hear this right, where things are coming from.
Well, no, you're still gonna get, we're doing lots of testing in that particular area because we know it's a hot pocket, so we can, you can measure the positivity rate. So if you could go in and test everybody there and find out, okay, 2% of the population is exposed, you could narrow them down, but we've just focused a lot on our testing in those particular hot spots, and by removing the stat, all you're gonna see is the positives from Woodburn. You're not gonna see that we tested
I understand.
5,000 people and we only had 100 positives. That's the thing that it's gonna be.
yeah, that's a challenge, removing that data point. I mean, as you know, we've been pretty transparent with the information that we've shared from the beginning. And it has been helpful for us to better identify where those gaps are. And so now we're gonna have to be a little bit more creative in how we identify gaps in testing in Marion County. It'll be less based on the information, this quantitative information that's available to us, and more so talking with our community partners and looking at where the cases are coming from. So, but as you mentioned, Commissioner Cameron, testing is a top priority for us, and we're working with the University of Oregon. I have mentioned that a few times here, and we're still in the process of identifying 6 sites throughout Marion County to begin testing in January through August weekly. And those will hopefully be around the entire county, and in places where people are able to access those easily. We are hosting weekly testing events, and our next one is Monday, December 14th at the fairgrounds, and it's from 11 to 1 o'clock. And then we are excited that Oregon should start to receive some of the first COVID-19 vaccines in the next week or so. There will be limited doses available that are prioritized for healthcare workers and residents of long-term care facilities. And the first allocation will go to hospitals with the ultra-cold chain capabilities, because it will be that Pfizer vaccine that has to be kept at those super cold temperatures. We are working with our community partners to prepare for vaccine distribution. We have a call scheduled today at 1 o'clock with our hospital partners to talk about how what our plans are countywide. Another thing that we really want to track here is the number of doses that we receive and the number of doses that are administered, so we can be transparent with that as well. We want to make sure that as the vaccine rolls out, that we are able to put out as much information as possible with how it's going, and if there's any negative adverse reactions, and how many people have accepted and taken up the vaccine. So we'll be talking about how we're going to do that as a community today and through the next several weeks. We will most likely not see the widespread availability of the vaccine for the next few months. And there's a vaccine advisory committee that will begin meeting in January to look at the allocation process for phases 1B, phase 2, and phase 3. So currently, the doses available now are for the phase 1A, which are the healthcare workers who are working directly with COVID-19 patients and the residents of the long-term care facilities. The United Kingdom started giving the Pfizer vaccine, so we're watching the news closely to see how that's rolling out there as well. As the vaccine does roll out, we will still need to be wearing our masks and socially distancing. Vaccine distribution during a surge will be a challenge for us as the cases climb, and we're trying to immunize folks, our community, it's still very important to wear the face covering and social distance, wash hands, staying home if you're sick. And then the holiday season is approaching, so I wanted to mention a little bit about shopping local, taking precautions as you're out there, minimizing the time you're spending in stores and around crowds of people, shopping by yourself or with a small group early in the morning, or online shopping. Many of our stores here in Salem and Marion County make the online shopping and picking up curbside available now. So I think our community has really shown great resolve, and I just want to put a plug in for them as we're headed into this holiday season. And then lastly, we talk about DIY contact tracing a lot, and I just want to mention that again. If you test positive and your doctor tells you you've tested positive, please let folks know that you've been in contact with, that you've tested positive, and that they should stay home and call their doctor if they feel they need a test. Our case investigators and contact tracers are still a couple of days behind, but people should know that they've tested positive from their doctor or from their testing event. The county does not notify people that they've tested positive. We are notified that you've tested positive, and we call you to say, hey, where do you work? Who have you been around? And that will be after your doctor or nurse or someone calls you after a testing event to notify that you tested positive. So, but in the meantime, if you need resources or a safe place to isolate, please call our warm line, and that number is 503-576-4602.
Thank you. We get a daily report, comes as a text, and as you know, I typically just acknowledge that I saw it. Was pretty simple. But just so people know, for 6 months, it was always somewhere around 30, and it might climb a little bit. But the last, month, typically around 200. And you've had a few times I couldn't just say K, I couldn't say thanks. It was like, what? So we do know that it's changing, and you see the graphs, but we go from 30 a day to almost 200. We need to be more aware than ever, and thanks for all your efforts.
Well, and Katrina, I know I said the DYOCT, do your own contact tracing. An example this week, or I guess it was after our board session last week, some people that I know told me the story. A person was working in a daycare. The father, one of the kids had tested positive. The kid, one of the children that was being supervised by this person, tested positive. This person had been exposed. Doctor said, were you more than so much time around this person? Do you have any symptoms? No. But what these people did was, and some other people had been around that person, and what they did was they self-isolated. And in fact, I've been doing laundry for one of them. They put it outside their house. I pick it up, and then they had a pet that had problems, so I went and took the pet to the vet. So, sanitize my hands when I pick up the dog and when I take the dog back and all that stuff. But it's an example of what people need to do to be able to stop it from spreading and taking all those actions. And it's a pain. We all know that it's a pain, and but your health department is educating people enough that people out there know what to do now, and they're doing it. We don't have to have a health department calling them every day to follow up on them. So it's been with us long enough. If you don't know, if you see somebody without them, where was I yesterday? And somebody didn't have, this morning I went to pick up my mail at the P.O. box, and this guy's in the P.O. box without a mask on. And I see it, and I go, okay, well, I'm not going to say anything to him, but I just backed up and waited till he left. But to see that is very infrequently now. I think people get it, and there are people that are bolder than me that want to lose a vote and say, hey, buddy, you need to put a mask on. But it's interesting times. So I just thank the health department for all the public announcements and the TV and everything else, so people are starting to take care of themselves, and this week was a good example for me to actually be pretty close to it.
All right, we'll move on. We have an item to add and what?
Keeping my distance
Well,
from
would you?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we add an item to the agenda. That item that we're adding is under Public Works, consider a building permit fee waiver for secondary dwellings affected by recent wildfires. I'll make that motion.
I guess it's the same. I like discuss better. This isn't an action item, really just a discussion, but I'll second it.
Okay?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to add an item to consider or discuss a building permit fee waiver for secondary dwellings affected by recent wildfires. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we'll make that the last item in action. Now the consent calendar.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent calendar, Health and Human Services, approve an order appointing Brian Butler to Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee with the term ending December 31st, 2023. Under Public Works, approve Scotts Mills, always love that bridge, Scotts Mills
Gotta
license
go.
and encroachment agreement with Douglas and Jody Burgoyne that allows the homeowner to install and maintain a fence and other improvements in the fence line of Scotts Mills Park to curb trespassing from park visitors onto homeowners' policy.
All right, I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? I don't hear any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. All right, our first action item this morning, oh, now it's my turn to trip on one, but it's under Public Works. Consider adopting administrative ordinance granting comprehensive plan amendment zone change partition case number 19003, Patrick and Tyaja Alagos.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Joe Fenimore. This item before you today is an application to change the zone from AR10, which is acreage residential 10-acre minimum lot size, to an AR2 zone to allow a 2-acre minimum lot size. It included a comprehensive plan amendment to take an exception to Goal 14 urbanization. The property is 5 acres in size, and then the second part of the application is to divide the property into 2 parcels of 2 acres and 3 acres each. The hearings officer held a public hearing on April 3rd, 2019, and on September 26th issued a report recommending the board deny the request based on the existing record at that time. The board held a duly noticed public hearing on the application on November 4th, 2020. After considering all the arguments and testimony in the record, approved the request subject to conditions. The conditions are standard conditions for a partition, include plating requirements, filing of declaratory statements, well water measurements, and access requirements. The ordinance and findings have been prepared, and notice of adoption was given on December 2nd. The ordinance is now set for formal adoption. The board has the options of adopting the ordinance as written, direct staff to prepare a modified ordinance, choose not to adopt the ordinance at this time. Staff recommends the board adopt the ordinance as written. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
No, I think we saw this a little while back, so it's just the final step.
And I agree.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt an administrative ordinance granting comprehensive plan amendment zone change partition ZCP, case number 19-003, Patrick and Tyaja Alagos.
I second it. And I'm not going to repeat the motion. We both
Yeah.
understand it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, and thanks for all your work on this and other issues. I'm going to resource the Board of
Do we want
Commissioners.
Do we want to do the other action item, or do we want to go to contract review board and then come back?
I'll come back.
Okay, all right.
Okay, this is, we're going to open a contract review board, call that meeting to session and recess the regular Board of Commissioners meeting. We have Scott Emery and Camber Schlag here to consider an order that appoints a sole source procurement for Oracle e-business suite clone module, CT clone, for a database virtualization software license subscription with CloneTab. Why do you even pretend that I'd have any idea what you're talking about.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Camber Schlag. I'm the Contracts and Purchasing Manager in the Finance Department, and with me today I have Scott Emery.
Good morning, Scott Emery, Information Technology Director. This morning we bring forward from the Information Technology Department, we seek to purchase a software to assist with managing changes within the existing Oracle Business Suite of enterprise applications supporting the county's finances, human resources, payroll, and purchasing workflows. Given the ever-increasing complexity of maintaining the Oracle system and the software changes, critical system patches, security updates, it's a very time-consuming process requiring many manual steps and several days to complete across multiple computer systems. As one example of the complexity, a recent assessment by the outside consultants engaged in our Oracle upgrade project counted more than 100,000 patches that had to be applied in order to make the databases become current. A significant effort by large. It also impacts the business significantly downstream because they have to do a lot of testing through these various systems, meaning if they're unable to perform their regular day jobs, they have to do a lot of these system testings as we do updates. The proposed automation tool accelerates the process by analyzing changes to a baseline computer, and then it propagates the exact clone of the changes to the other 6 related systems. The Supplier Clone tab is a gold partner with Oracle, and the software is unique in the marketplace as the only vendor having tight end-to-end change management integration across the several components of the business suite, justifying the sole source selection. The sole source contract targeted is for December 2020. It has a total contract value of $118,345, including the first year of software maintenance and support. And with that, I can assist you with any of your hard-hitting questions that you have for me.
You find something.
No, I'm not even gonna try.
Just-
I
oh,
do
go
know, I do know that we have been making a lot of investments in IT for the last 4 or 5 years, and we have many more to go. I'm trying to think what department head was it the other day that was very complimentary of IT and how they were getting their projects done. Oh, I think it was, even our assessor was talking about some of the work that he's done, the jail and all that. So we know we've got work to do, and Scott, appreciate your leadership there. And Mr. Chair, you want me to, go ahead.
Well, please go ahead and make the motion. I have a
Yeah,
question.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve an order of sole source procurement for an Oracle e-business suite clone model, CT clone, for a database visualization software license subscription to Clone tab.
Right.
All right, I'll second it, but I do have a, Canberra, could you just succinctly, why the sole source, just why are we doing it this
Yes.
way?
Thank you. So, in compliance with ORS 279B.075 sole source procurements, as well as Marion County public contracting rules, the Information Technology Department did do the research. They did confirm that this is the only vendor that provides the end-to-end services that they are after. And therefore, that's why we are here before you this morning.
That's all I wanted to hear, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll have however long it takes to discuss building permits and secondary dwellings. So, Commissioner Cameron?
So-
Thank you, adjourn.
So, Mr. Chair,
Well, I
I
know,
know,
contract
as-
review board.
as
board of
Brandon, what's that?
I just was adjourning contract review,
You-
we're back in regular
You
board.
did,
meeting.
I heard you. Okay, so we're back into our regular board session, and Mr. Chair, this item that we added today is a result of a discussion that we took action, I think this was October 14th, where we took action to waive fees for permanent residents in the wildfire area. We've had discussion about that, approximately what that would cost. A lot of people don't understand, the public doesn't understand that, you know, as a citizen, I pay dollars. Sometimes I don't know where they go or why they go there, but in our building permits area, that our building division is funded by those permit fees. It's not general fund dollars, it doesn't come from the state, it's the people that actually get the building permits and have the inspections are paying for that staff to do that. So we decided on October 14th that we wanted to, we got some numbers. The average 1,600 square foot house was $2,000 plus a $500 septic permit fee, the first septic permit fee. We waived that. We estimated the primary dwellings and figured at 2,500, and we said, okay, well, could we afford to be able to do this and still have staff available to do the work? And that's the important thing, is that we want to make sure we have staff to do the work. And the big reason we limited it to permanent dwellings was because those people had no house. I want to repeat that. Those people had no house, and we wanted to give them every chance and incentive to be able to get back, build their homes, and get back into their homes in a safe manner and as quickly as possible. And since that time, there's been feedback, chatter, and I'm going to say this probably publicly, you know, almost some of it was kind of mean back at us, that say, why didn't you, you know, you're discriminating against me because you didn't, you know, give me free permits or whatever. And, you know, you have a home. If this is your second home, you have a home that you got to go to. So that was our big reason to do it, because we need to have the fees to be able to pay for the staff to come in. Thinking through the feedback that we've been getting, we do want people to rebuild, whether it's a permanent dwelling or a secondary dwelling. And we want them to do that as quickly and as safely as possible to bring this community back to a normalcy, which will take probably past years in my lifetime. I mean, I've said that this canyon has been recovering from a natural disaster since the late 1980s when the spotted owl hit it, and it's never really got back to a normal economy. Tried to, but it struggled the whole time. So now we've got this fire on top of it. So I think when we were looking at this, and the other day I had this idea of saying, wait, we want to get people to build. And if we can give people that don't have permanent residence an incentive to come back sooner, we should probably do that, because it helps them, it helps the community, and it'll help with the, as we saw yesterday when we were meeting with the assessor, it'll help the tax base if we can get these places rebuilt. We used an example yesterday of a house up in, I had a meeting with the assessor that was just me and Barb and I on some people that came to our town hall last week and said, hey, our house burnt down, but I still got this tax bill, and I applied for relief, and that my taxes still didn't go down. And so we went through that yesterday. These people are paying $1,700 in taxes this year. They don't realize, based on January 1st, with no house on their property, their taxes next year will only be $600. And that was with the assessor saying, okay, the property was worth $149, and we've taken it down to $108. And this is property on the Little North Fork that you and I would buy in a heartbeat for $108,000. So the assessor's doing everything they can to help these people. So my proposal is for us to consider talking about, and we can give direction to staff. We don't need a board order to do this. And I know I've been talking way too much. Get to the point. Is that potentially we would limit the time for primary dwellings for people with secondary homes, limit the time they could come in and apply for a building permit, like to a year or 2 years, and give them a 50% discount on the building permit. So we're saying, if you can come in within this time, or maybe it's within the next year, while we have staff here and we have the money to do it, maybe we say within a year, we'll give you the $2,000 and the $500 too. I just wanted to have that discussion to go back. I think people have, it's not that we weren't being fair, but I've reconsidered, we need to get everybody to build as fast as possible. And is there a way that we could say, we hear you, if you do this within a year, well, you can get it done. But you have what, 18 months after that or 2 years after that to build your house, but you need to come in and apply for the permits and submit the plan. So that's kind of the discussion I wanted to have. I wanted to do it in a public forum, obviously, so that people knew what we're talking about. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are bouncing around random. First of all, I agree, I'd like everybody to get back, and if we can help them in some way, who wouldn't want to do that? That's what we have to do. But I really need some analysis. These are reserves that are set up to make sure that we have the staff on hand in the future to, we don't raise taxes, or at least we haven't here. We rely on growth, and we want to make sure that we have everything in place to facilitate that growth. And it just worries me. You say, oh, well, it's in this fund, but if you find out now you're faced with questions on making those funds up or laying people off and not having that capacity, I just want a little look out into the future what this could really mean before I just give a blank go. And I'm also concerned a little bit that the county needs a policy. It isn't just in this case maybe, but if there's department heads with reserves, I want to limit their discretion to expend those resources, if you can follow what I mean, without the boards being involved in approval. That's just dangerous. If, for example, if they say, hey, we can do this and we want to, well, that's fine, till you start getting blamed because we have no staff left and stuff. So I just want that to be looked at too. Who has real authority to use those resources and the long-term effect on staffing and general fund?
So Jan's here today because we've talked a little bit about this, but Commissioner, I think, and Brandon's here, so we can talk about this, but I think Brandon has a budget for his staff and his planning department, and he's estimating revenues. And then there's a reserve, right? There's a contingency, and then there's an ending fund balance in each one of those budgets. So how this would work is that if he was gonna spend any of that contingency or ending fund balance, it would have to come back to us in a supplemental budget, right? Am I,
Yes,
the process?
correct.
So Brandon, if Brandon's, like, he did discuss with us what was about 1.2 million, we thought that the 5-year plan for for primary dwellings we would lose that revenue, basically. It's not gonna cost us, it just that revenue wouldn't come in if we were giving those permits away. The question is, I think you're asking, Commissioner, is what would it be if we said for the next year, I mean, I don't know how you estimate it, if for the next year, if you said they were non-primary dwellings, we're gonna lift the fees if you apply within this next year for a rebuild, or in the next 2 years. What is that number? And how does that affect the reserves or the ending fund balance?
We can do some analysis and bring that back next week.
Okay.
Have a discussion.
So that'd be my next, well, I had 2 questions, I only got 1. What's the process to do it? We'll do it next board meeting? Management update?
I
Or just-
prefer sooner the better we got the numbers, because we could get them at a management update, right?
It's about 300 homes estimated between the primary and the secondary dwellings. And so the approximate difference in revenue is around 800,000 for 100% fee reduction. And for a 50% fee reduction, it's 400,000. A lot of mutuals.
Whoa, wait, you lost me on the numbers.
I got it.
If the 100% fee reduction.
How many
for
homes,
300
how many homes are,
300 homes.
primary dwellings?
Oh, primary
We've already,
four-
1.2 million was primary. How many of those?
450.
450 primary dwellings?
Approximately,
Okay. And that was 1.2.
yes.
And you're saying there's an additional non-primary dwellings of 300?
Approximately 300.
Okay, go ahead.
And that's 800,000
If we did it
at 100%
at
reduction.
100%.
So the way I'm doing the analysis is to consider primarily, do we have enough resources and revenue and also staffing to do this permitting work, do this rebuilding permitting work without additional funds, without these funds? And in the timeframe that I can foresee, saying through the end of the fiscal year, But we have the revenue, we have the resources and staff to do that work. As time progresses, if the economy and rebuilding economy outside the canyon doesn't remain strong, we could start seeing an impact next summer where we aren't having the types of permits activity, the types of revenue. And that's a point where we'd start asking for using that reserve money or actually net working capital in order to keep staff on, to keep being able to do the work that we've already been applied for, already contracted to do with the public and with property owners. So the real crux of this knowledge will come really almost a year from now. Next fall, we'll know if we've had a non-busy spring, a non-busy summer going into fall. We know we're starting to get into that networking capital, and the degree of the impact on the networking capital, we'll start having a picture of it then. Things have been surprisingly stronger than we expected coming into this year. I think we've had a lot of remodels, a lot of different types of activity. People are home and they are able to get some work done and be home with either for the contractor or for the inspector to be there. And so we've been surprisingly strong coming into this. And our ending net working capital for the last fiscal year was higher than I anticipated. So that's promising. So our net working capital is about 1.7 times expenses. So we have some time frame there to start making adjustments even a few months from now if we see things changing.
All right, so bring that back to the analysis that trends out as far as you can. I just worried, I want to do this, but I worry about everything we kind of give away, what's the long-term effect on the county, and we're giving away lots now.
So what I just heard Brandon say, Commissioner, and this is.
I know, but he also said it's special good conditions, and how does that last in the?
Right, so the revenue that's coming in right now is higher than what we expected because besides the canyon, we have these permits that are coming in for building within Marion County.
Revenue's still strong.
So we have, my concern was revenue's strong. Do we have staff to fill the service of taking care of all those people, right? Because the people that are paying, obviously, we need to make sure that we provide the level of service that they expect. So why we have this full staff, if we were to say, you're over here, you can come in and apply for a permit and you don't have to pay, right now, you could absorb that revenue or lack of revenue coming in for a period of time that is maybe a year or maybe a little bit longer, what I'm hearing, because the activity is supporting our staff that we're having. And
at least for the next year,
right,
foreseeable for what we can foresee occurring.
So it makes sense to me to say, if we put a limited time on these non-primary residents to incentivize them, we could handle it now. If not, we'd have to go out and get a contract with staff or whatever. That's what I was worried about. Are we going to spend more money to get this work done that we're not charging for?
It's hard to predict. If we really get gangbusters next spring, summer, by summer we might have to do some contract.
Go on contract.
I don't expect the cost to be excessive though, even for that.
So, Mr. Chair, I don't know how long we want to delay this answer, but he's given us an $800,000 number, which takes us to $2 million, which would be if all 750 residents came in, the 450 that we've already decided, they have 5 years for the 1.2. I'm suggesting that we put a limited time on the non-primary residents, which is 800, and you're not gonna get all 300 coming in during that limited time, and if they miss that window, they're gonna have to pay. That's what I'm suggesting, if we put a window of 2 years on them. And if they all came in 2 years, it sounds like we have the staff now that would be able to support that.
Okay,
And
I don't want to sound like I'm opposed. I just want this to come to the next board meeting and we can have a decision in a week. And the one that sounds counter to how I'm sounding, but it seems like it has to be at least 2 years. given time to clean up, make plans, get a contractor before you, I know once you have the permit, you have time and extensions, whatever, but I don't see how they can be expected within even 18 months to
Well,
do all that.
what I witnessed last weekend when I was up there, there's a lot of people moving that are non-primary residents. They're moving on getting their stuff cleaned up. They're not waiting for FEMA. And those are the people that would want to take advantage of that. They're gonna come, those people are gonna come in and pay anyways, right? So you could have a little box, do you want to volunteer your funds? Or do you want to pay them involuntary?
All right. So
Extra tax.
So I'm fine with deciding it next week, are you?
No, I want.
You want to do it right now?
I
How?
wanna let these people
This
know
isn't even
that-
an agenda item in,
It's like, give them more incentive to get going. So I guess, you know, if it has to wait till next week, fine. I just don't want it to, if we're gonna take action, I want to take it sooner than later. So, because I think it's.
I need to see a little bit more how it works out. I have
Okay,
insurances
right.
and stuff, but let's lay it out, look at it, and I'm not
So,
opposed.
so
I just
the
want to
oth-
follow
the
a
oth-
process.
The other option is if we could talk about this as a management update and you get the numbers and you're comfortable with it, and we can just give direction to staff, because they don't need a board order for this. And then we could do a board order on Wednesday to formalize it. Because Chris has the authority now to, or you do,
The building official, Chris,
to waive something.
I guess there's going to have to be a few other definitions. There's been some confusion on how you know it's primary, how you know it's secondary, so describe who it's for. And I want that listed out so there'd be no confusion for people. And there'll still be those.
It's kind of the honor system, right, isn't it?
We've actually been fairly successful at determining if it's a primary home. People are able to provide evidence, some kind of evidence of their own to say that this is, I'm registered something there. I'm registered with my bank statements go there, my insurance goes there.
I'm registered to vote there.
Registered to vote there. People are, and we're being very generous with it.
Sure.
We're looking for an opportunity to call it a primary home when we have the chance. There could be multiple homes on a property, but if it's if it's that person's only home that they have that burned, we could have two or three primary homes on a dwelling if they're all their primary homes, that the only home they have. And I think that right now, almost all the ones we're seeing are the primary homes coming in.
All right, so I'm just going to repeat a little description of how it affects the future and definitions for who it applies to and how long, make the decision how long it applies to, and then we can decide it. I don't care if it's management update. I'd rather just do it next week. It only saves 2 days, but whatever. And people can know that we're considering it and considering it favorably from this point on. So just be aware.
We'll send them a Christmas present.
Fine.
Say Merry
Anything else?
No, I think, so we will, not take any action on this, but we'll,
I'll bring this to management update
Sure.
on Monday.
All right.
I'm giving you that on your way out.
Fine. I'm trying to take care of you on my way out,
I'm
if you really
teasing you,
listen.
too.
If you really listen.
Yeah.
All right. Let's wrap up board and, let's see. I guess that's it, except the calendar we'll do at the very end. So now, unless you'd like a break, and I don't, is that fine?
I'm good.
Then I will open a public hearing having to do with considering an appeal of the hearings officer's decision approving a floodway greenway case 20003, Marion County Friends of Historic Butteville. And Brandon, I assume we've made you do other duty, but you were here for this issue.
Yes,
So would you go ahead and explain what's going on?
Sure. For the record, Brandon Wright, Building and Planning Division Manager at Public Works. The item before you today is an appeal of the hearings officer's decision approving a permit to install a dock in the 100-year floodplain of the Willamette River at Butteville Landing. The planning director approved the request and it was subsequently appealed. On June 18th this year, the hearings officer conducted a hearing and left the record open until July 27th. On September 9, the hearings officer issued a decision approving the request, and the decision was appealed to the board on September 24th. In their appeal, the opponents argue, among other arguments, that the use of the right-of-way is improper for a dock, that the dock and the use of the land has affected nearby property owners negatively, and that evidence was allowed into the record improperly by the hearings officer. The board has the options at the close of the hearing to continue the hearing, requiring an agreement from the applicant to extend the 150-day deadline decision for making a decision. That deadline is currently January 21st, 2021. The board may close the hearing and leave the record open for a period of time. The board may remand the matter back to the hearings officer, requiring an agreement for the applicant to extend the decision-making timeline. Or the board may close the public hearing and approve or deny the application, or approve or deny a modified, or approve a modified proposal. If the board were to approve the request, staff recommends that it be subject to the 5 conditions that the hearings officer identified, which include obtaining all permits required from building inspection, public works director signing the application, complying with floodplain requirements, and retaining natural vegetation on the subject property. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
No, but I may address some things. We've had a request from the applicants to continue this to a later date. I'm speaking for me, I didn't find that overwhelming, and they asked for a hearing, we set a date, we've given them that, they'll still have opportunity to respond, either written, we'll make ourselves available by phone. I don't know what that number is. Jane, have you set that up? Is there anybody that will call in?
I don't know, I haven't heard that anyone signed up. No one signed up.
All right, nobody signed up to do it.
By phone.
Anyway,
We have the applicant, or the appellant, are you the appellant?
No, it's talking about phone.
People are present.
all right, they're present, wonderful.
And to clarify, the opponents requested a continuance, not the applicant.
Okay.
And the applicant has to agree to extend that timeline for making a decision. If the
Fine.
board were to continue the hearing, we have to be early January.
It's a little confusing. The applicant are the people that want to put in the
Correct.
dock.
Right.
All right.
Friends of Historic Viewville.
All right. And these are the applicants that are
I
here.
believe the applicant and the opponent
Oh, we have
represent both
So
are
we're
here
gonna hear
today.
from the applicant first.
All right, there's only one person signed up, but we'll do that. All right, any other?
Just to address, I think a couple of things got a little bit blended. The 150-day timeline is January. The applicant, or the appellants here have requested a continuance of this hearing today. This board could move it as long as you're within that timeframe. The basis that they are making their request is COVID-19. It does appear that they are here today, present, able to give testimony. They're also able to call in by telephone. They do cite to some court cases. We just heard from Judge Prawl that the circuit courts are continuing mostly by telephonic
COVID's not a
hearing.
reason to continue.
So, my input on that issue is that you are well within your past practices and the procedure that we've been following for COVID and the circuit courts have been following for COVID to hear this hearing today.
All right, thank you. And it sounds like we will then. All right, anything else, Brandon?
Nothing further.
All right, again, I know there's 2 here. One is signed up and it didn't sign. That's why I was a little confused who's who. Peter Kohler, if you'd come, is this Mike live here?
Yeah.
If you'd come up, introduce yourself and go ahead. I typically have, well, I don't know, I'm mixed up on support and opposition, but we'll see where you are.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Peter Curler. I am a board member of Friends of Historic Butteville and therefore representing the party applying for this permit. And obviously in support of the opinion of the hearing officer below. I am an arbitrator and a mediator. Just to give you a little background of me, I'm a 30-year resident of French Prairie. I guess I want to start by pointing out that this project is a shining example of public-private partnership. As you all know, we had several years ago a a public asset in the form of a right-of-way to the river that was going into disuse. Marion County didn't have the resources, but it had the will. The community had the will and formed a nonprofit, collaborated with the county through a memorandum of understanding, raised money from individuals and from foundations. The county provided in-kind contribution, resulting in a reclaiming, or I should say a reinvigorating, a reanimating of this public asset, this access to the river in the Butteville community. So it is the kind of initiative of which we as citizens of this county ought to be very, very proud. The appellants, as you know, are neighbors on either side. Each have their own private docks. And they have benefited, I think, honestly, by the fact that the public right-of-way had gone into disuse and become overgrown, so that they were not in a position where they had to share that public asset with the public. What's really going on here is that these neighbors would like to keep it that way. And I think you are all aware of the contentious history between the county and one of the neighbors, Ms. Kramer, dating back to as long as 2009, over access to this public asset. So that's a high-level view from Friends of Historic Butteville about this case. I'm going to address briefly each of the items of appeal that appellants have articulated. First, they claim that this is a park as it has been developed, not a right-of-way. The county has an easement for a public road by virtue of the original grant. As the hearings officer found, a road under ORS, I'm quoting now, provides ingress to or egress from property by vehicles or by any other means. Or by any other means. So that includes pedestrians. That includes pedestrians with paddlecraft. The claim by appellants that this is a park focuses on some of the amenities that have been installed by this project in order to enhance and assist in the ingress and egress and use of this road to and from Butteville and the river. So they point to, for instance, grassy areas, which were put in for ADA compliance, which were put in for water catchment in order to prevent erosion. They also serve as a staging area for people who are pulling their paddlecraft out of the river and gather their gear so that they can then take their gear up or bring their gear down. So fully consistent with the intent that this is a right-of-way to and from the river and to enable some kind of river traffic. The hearings officer carefully considered all of this evidence and concluded that all of the improvements were consistent for the intended purpose. And I think she was absolutely correct. The appellants would have us believe that simply because there is some signage, that there is a table down at the staging area, that this is somehow transforms it into a park, and it simply doesn't. The other primary argument of appellants is that this development has somehow unleashed all sorts of untoward behavior. And they point to garbage and parking and criminal activity and that kind of thing. So let's take a look at the facts. So first of all, the hearing officer found, and Friends of Historic Butteville agreed, that there was about a 1 week period of time in the spring when all other parks were closed because of COVID, and because this isn't a park, this is a right-of-way, when there was an increase in after-hours activity and some calls to the sheriff. The hearings officer found that that was, as I said, just a spike. The evidence since then, and you've received a submission from Friends of Historic Butteville just in the last couple of days, indicates two things of note. One is not a single call to the sheriff since July of this year. So that's through, and that includes the 4th of July weekend, all through August, Labor Day weekend, September and October. We have also submitted photographs taken every single week showing how much garbage is in the 2 garbage cans at the landing on a weekly basis. And as I'm sure you know, garbage can fill rates are a secondary indicator of use on county and state lands. And the amount of garbage over the course of that same period of time, July, August, September, October, is really small, really small. So no calls to the sheriff, no overuse as reflected in garbage. The other side has submitted a little bit of evidence that frankly proves our point. We hear that there's a picture of a car partially blocking a driveway, which ought not to happen. I agree with that. But I would suggest that the remedy for that kind of relatively isolated violation is not to close down public access. There is a submission from a Mr. Denton who lives down the road a piece in the gated community, who says that a man was walking around his neighborhood on his property and his car was parked by the landing, whatever that means. I'm sorry for Mr. Denton that there was a man trespassing. That's not okay. But again, the connection between that and the landing is tenuous at best. And then finally, they submit a picture of another park, French Prairie Park, with a parked car and some garbage around the car, with the message to us, this could happen to us if we don't act. And that appears to me to be a significant stretch. So long story short, on the untoward activity argument, there's not a lot of there. And this community is, except for the neighbors, is very much in support of this and is helping to keep an eye to make sure that it's being managed well. There were I'm going to go through the other issues pretty quickly, but I can answer any questions you have if you want me to go more deeply. They claim that the State Historic Preservation Office raised some questions and in a letter, and in fact that is true. That was back in April of 2018 when that office became involved. But what they don't tell you is what happened later. What happened, so the State Historic Preservation Office in April 18 did raise some questions, and it basically had to do with concern that if the gangway was resting on the old foundation remnants, what would that do to the historic attributes of that foundation? And if there's something under that foundation that is of historic cultural consequence, would it somehow compromise it? In that letter, SHPO says, if the gangway is built above the existing foundation with no direct contact, we are less concerned about the potential effect to the structure. And they also suggest that when the gangway and dock are put in, that there be an archaeologist present and on site. This was submitted, so FOHB, Friends of Historic Butteville's response was, okay, we will alter the design and we will not rest the gangway on the structure. That plan went to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which had the SHPO letter, had the design change. In July of 2019, Army Corps of Engineers approved the plan, including an inadvertent discovery plan, so referencing the same subject matter about which the SHPO letter was concerned. And that was it. So, and then I guess the last piece of this you should know, a significant piece of funding, as I'm sure you know, of this project is from OPRD, Oregon Parks and Recreation Department, of which SHPO is a part. So they have funded us after U.S. Army Corps of Engineers approved the plan, and that certainly undercuts any argument that somehow SHPO is standing in the way of what we're doing here. The other argument that appellants make here is that this project with the dock is going to create a rise in the river. And that is contrary to regulation. At Marion County Public Works suggestion, we hired Boatwright Engineering Company here in Salem to conduct a survey and issue a report with respect to floodplain issues. And I'm looking at their report now, second page. The cross-sectional area impacted by the pilings at the south end of the project produces a 0.02 foot increase, 2/100ths of 1 foot in vertical elevation of the floodplain surface. This is below the 0.1 foot threshold that FEMA can monitor and is therefore regarded as no rise. So just to put a finer point on that, FEMA does require no rise, but defines no rise with a variance of 0.1 foot. Our variance was 2/100ths of a foot. So we pass, and I don't think there's a lot of controversy about that. But if you take appellant's argument to its logical conclusion, what they're really arguing is no dock can ever be put in the river now that they've got their docks, right? Because there's always going to be some infinitesimal amount of water displacement unless you were able to carve out, dredge out part of the river, which of course is prohibited by other environmental requirements. So what that requirement means is that you have to create a project that has no rise within the meaning of the FEMA tolerances, and this comes well within that tolerance. The argument that there was new evidence submitted by us really fails. If you look at the hearing officer's report, she excluded quite a bit of evidence and didn't consider it. There are about 4 pieces of evidence. There was one piece of evidence which she did allow in, and it was this. It was this one sentence. Boat ramps are big and wide open access points to the river, involve placement of gravel or cement driveways where multiple vehicles with trailers and usually motorized boats can pull up, turn around, back in out of the water to launch or take boats. The Butteville landing is the polar opposite of a boat ramp. That is hardly evidence. It is a matter about which any officer can and should take judicial notice, it seems to me. That is a matter of common understanding. And then finally, on the signature issue, the hearing officer found that Marion County, not Friends of Historic Butteville, ought to have been the signatory. We were told by Marion County that we should sign it since we were raising the money. I think in hindsight, probably would have been better for Marion County to sign it. But so what the hearings officer did is simply say, as a condition to going forward, Marion County, you need to sign it. And what I hear from Public Works is that they're prepared to do that. So it's a simple condition to going forward. So I will pause and would happily entertain any questions. We ask that you affirm the decision of the hearings officer below and allow this really wonderful community project to go forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I just want to kind of tighten up the procedure here. It was my understanding, just based on the documents that we received, that neither the applicant nor the appellant's attorneys were present, even though they had attorneys represent them. So, Mr. Kohler, is that it?
Yeah, I pronounce it Curler.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Curler,
makes
you
no
were
sense.
giving testimony not as a representative, but as a member of the public, which is why we went in the order of sign up. So I just want to clarify that, because normally we would have the appellant go first, but because the representatives weren't here, he was on the sign up, he went, and then whoever wants to give testimony in favor may come up.
Well, I appreciate that, Ms. Veto. I am not here as an attorney representing,
Right.
but I am here at least in my representative capacity as a member of the board of directors of Friends of Historic Butteville.
Okay.
And also in my capacity as an interested member of the public who lives in the community.
But for the procedure, we are going on the public sign-up, and that is how you were called.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Questions?
None right now.
All right, thank
I'm
you,
good.
Peter.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
All right, and the other signed up to speak is Julia Kramer. Julia, want to come up, and she is representing the appellants.
Good
Morning.
morning. Well, I'm neither an arbitrator nor mediator. I'm not an attorney. I originally came here this morning to help ask that our case be postponed to a time that Marion County is not in a state of extreme risk due to the current pandemic, as unfortunately the other appellants are all in a state of health risk due to the pandemic, including our attorney who is unfortunately not able to be here. We're really hoping you'll consider a postponement. We have members of the community who are very definitely negatively impacted by this project, and have been since a park was created. And despite Mr. Curler's denial of it being a park, I don't know what a park is, what the definition of, if you don't consider multiple park benches, picnic tables, a park bench, a viewing area, a sidewalk leading to the viewing area of the river, grassy areas. He mentioned it's due to ADA compliance, but there's no ADA railing, so I'm not sure what ADA compliance he's referring to, because that part is missing. Anyway, I don't know how Mr. Curler and his group define a park, but to me that is a park. And the fact is that it is, he referred to it as a right-of-way, which it is. It's a roadway right-of-way easement, is my understanding. But we, as the adjacent property owners, are the underlying fee title owners. And it's my understanding that it's our signatures that are required to go forth with this, with any of the project, and our signatures have not been requested, and we weren't asked for permission for any of the changes that were made. And the implication that we're against public access to the river is quite frankly false. I've lived there for 21 years. There's always been ingress and egress to the river. What we're objecting to is this park has been promoted and in such a way that it's become basically a 24-hour that has caused a lot of problems for us as community members. It's become, because it's been widely promoted as being open 24 hours a day, there's now drug problems that we never had in the past before the FOHB made it a project such as it is. It's always been used by the community for as a local fishing hole and that kind of thing, and the neighborhood has always used it, and we have no problem with that. But expanding this into now adding a boat dock, the proposed boat dock and gangway, is just going to increase the problems we've experienced in the community. And the crime increase, the drug use, the trespassing. And Mr. Curler denied that we've called the sheriff. I'm not sure where he's getting his information, but that is not correct. We had numerous videos because it was necessary to set up a security camera. And we had multiple videos that we asked the hearing officer to submit into evidence, and she would not allow us to do that. I'm not sure why. She didn't have the capability to accept it, but we'd be happy to provide a multitude of videos showing 2, 3 in the morning, altercations, fighting, things that we've had our sleep disrupted. It's calmed down now because it's winter and people aren't accessing the park as much, but the spring and summer and even the early fall have been a nightmare of problems. And the sheriff's office, unfortunately, is not always able to respond just because of the large territory they're covering and their short staff. They cover from Detroit all the way to where we are in North County, and they just, depending how busy they are, they spend a lot of time. Apparently Kaiser is a big area of problems, and so they're just not always able to get to us. So they come out when they can, as quickly as they can, but the fact is we're not high on their priority list, and they're just short of manpower, and that's not their fault. But this park has created a living nightmare for those of us who live there. And I will point out, Mr. Curler and the majority of his members of the FOHB do not reside anywhere near the park. And they don't know the daily nightmare that their park has created for us. And it's only going to worsen if this boat dock and gangway are allowed to go through. And he makes the point, well, that we somehow are, I guess his implication is that we're trying to be elitist or something, and that is not the case. The fact of the matter is there's really not a need to put a dock or a gangway in this tiny little half acre that's located so closely between two private homes without proper funding for security or maintenance, and to rely on a group of private citizens who frankly are not young. I believe their average age is, they're in their 70s, which I'm not far from that, so I have no problem with their age. That's not it. But the fact is they've proven, I believe the park broke ground in about 2000, forgive me if I'm off on the year, but I believe 2017, and they have not maintained it in the manner that they promised. It's very rarely maintained. It's ignored. And grass is overgrown in the summer. I've got photos of myself standing next to weeds that are, I'm 5'7", and the weeds were over my head. So they've got 6-foot weeds tall. So they're not maintaining it in the manner they said. The Marion County has supported and encouraged this little group of people who they promised they would maintain it. I believe Mr. Curler referred to it as a shining star of an example of a community and private, what were his words? A shining example of public-private partnership, and that the trail was going into disuse. Well, it continues to go into disuse under the FOHB's management. And it says Marion County didn't have the resources, but it had the will. Well, nobody has the resources for the ongoing maintenance and funding and security, and that's the problem. So what's happening, commissioners, is we're left as private homeowners to fend for ourselves when at 2 in the morning there's dangerous people accessing the park. And who are we supposed to call? We call the sheriff. Sometimes we get help, sometimes we don't. So we're left helpless as private citizens. And Mr. Williams and Mr. Curler are home asleep, miles and miles away, sleeping safely in their beds, but we're not. We're left in the dangerous position of having to defend ourselves. And I'm sorry I'm rambling on so much, and all I wanted to do really in coming here was to make sure and ask for an extension to when all the members of the community that wanted to be here to testify could be here safely to express their concerns. And we watched the video of you, the three of you, having the debate on November 25th. And clearly, you have only heard one side of the story, and which is Mr. Curler and his group's side. And I know you've had many, many meetings with Mr. Williams and because he was on the Parks Commission, and I'm very well aware of that. But you need to hear our side and the rest of the community who would like to express their experiences to you. So I'm asking if you would kindly grant us an extension. Hopefully, I guess I'm not clear if we only have until January, and that's fine. But whenever we can have, hopefully, the COVID reduced to where people feel safe appearing in public. I just want to make sure that I got everything. I just wanted to touch on a couple other things Mr. Curler said. I really wasn't planning to try the case today again because my attorney's not here, and he would do a much better job than me, I'm sure, but, oh, Mr. Curler made a comment about SHPO and their design change as far as laying the dock and gangway over, or the gangway over the historic remains. The historic remains mean a lot to me because it was my great-great-grandfather who actually built my home, and had the dock that remains are part of his legacy of, because he had the grain merchant, and he was the grain merchant who had the warehouse, and so that's part of his legacy as going back to the 1800s. And so it means a lot to me to not see those destroyed by things being placed. And Mr. Curler mentioned that there was a design change, but I've seen nothing submitted from the FOHB as to the design change. So we're very concerned about that and haven't heard. So I would appreciate hearing from the FOHB what those changes are. And Mr. Curler also mentioned that a significant source of funding for this project is from the OPRD. However, more importantly than just funding the project is having a source of ongoing funds for maintenance, security, and management of this park, because it is a park. And without those, as I said before, we're left as private citizens to fend for ourselves against crime and drug use that has been occurring since the creation of the park. And it's not just a COVID thing, as the FOHB is trying to present. And the other point is, Mr. Curler's trying to claim that we're contending that there can't be a dock ever. But there's really no need for a dock in this tiny little half acre, because 3.3 miles away in Shampooey Park, there's already more than adequate boat docks to meet the need of the public. Additionally, there's a boat dock 4.5 miles away in Boone's Ferry Landing. And thirdly, if they want a dock that's closer to Butteville, 2.2 miles away, there's French Prairie Park that I believe Mr. Curler also referenced. And it's currently closed. I don't understand why this park couldn't have been located there. It's a much better location. It's got river access. It's already got restrooms. And it would have been a much better location. It's currently closed, and my understanding is it's due to a lack of funding for maintenance. This is according to the manager of Shampooey Park. And I don't know why it's closed, and I'm not going to speculate other than that's what I've been told. And I think I already spoke about the signature issue, that Marion County are not the underlying fee title owners, and so it's my understanding that Marion County and FOHB cannot legally sign off. It requires our signatures as underlying fee title owners. Lastly, I just want to say that as far as the hearings officer's decision, it's my understanding she is ignoring numerous codes required by Marion County's own codes. And to even say that there's a minimal, to downplay the water rise and just ignore it, the fact is that the code says there can be zero water rise, and to allow them to violate that code just seems wrong to me. Anyway, I do hope you'll consider our request for a postponement, and I wanted to make sure that you did receive all our documents. So I guess I'm asking that question as well.
We have those, yes.
You did
And they're
get
all
them.
in the record.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm
Thank you.
sorry I took
Any
longer than I
questions, Commissioner?
planned. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I don't know if it's a question. I'm good.
Yeah, right.
I would like just to clarify, the extension beyond the 120 days requires the permission of the applicant, which is Friends of Historic Butteville. So this court cannot, or this board cannot go beyond that 120 days. So if you were to continue this hearing today, it would be before that, was it January?
January 21st.
January 21st time, unless Friends of Historic Butteville in writing requested an extension of that 120 days. So we would still be within COVID.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so, Jane, just to clarify, isn't the, and we're sitting here today because the appeal, right?
Right.
So the appellates would have to sign that, right?
No, so under the statute, so we have 120 days to get the decision out under the statute.
Okay,
That 120 days ends January 27th. So this board has to make a decision and get it to planning and out before January 27th. That's statutory. In order to extend that statutory deadline, which is what I'm hearing the request is, post-COVID, the applicant under the statute, which is Friends of Historic Butteville, would have to make that request to the board in writing, not the appellant. And so that is what we're looking at. I would also note, again, that our phone number was posted for this hearing. So if people don't feel comfortable testifying in person, they are able to call in.
All right, thank you.
I got all that.
All right. And Julie, thank you.
Thank you.
Brandon, any comments, thoughts?
The only thing I'd point out is in the conditional use rural chapter, the applications require signatures. One of the types of required signatures is signature of an authorized agent of a public agency holding an easement or other right that entitles the applicant to conduct the proposed use on the subject property without the approval of the property owners. So in this case, it's a right-of-way, and Marion County commonly does work in right-of-ways, and the hearings officer found, and I also believe that we would be the appropriate signature on the application.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So that was one, I almost asked this question, but it's probably directed towards you. So when Julie suggested that they needed to sign this, what you just said is no, it's us that would sign the permit.
As an existing right-of-way, we have an interest and an authority
Yeah.
over the use of it, for the purpose of access and movement transportation.
Okay. And the other thing, Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to clarify that this is not about the existing tables or pavement or landscaping that's already there. That's done, that's over. People obviously are coming and enjoying that and using that. This is about just the addition of the dock, the landing.
River access.
Correct. Right. This isn't about the park, or whatever you call it, the access that they've provided to the river.
Those were improvements made in the right-of-way regarding the access
That's
to the river.
done, that's not going backwards, that's gonna be there.
And that didn't require any land use permits.
Right.
Because it's existing access.
So this case is strictly about adding a dock. They've gone through all the issues of Army Corps and all, trust me, I know working with Army Corps is a pain, never mind. They're doing all those things. I want to say this about the request for denial, or request for extension. That was the first thing I wrote down when I read the attorney that wrote us something about extending this, and it was amazing because we had our courts here today saying we're just continuing to operate, and everything we've been doing, we've been trying to make accommodations for people. So, and last week, I think it was the chair who was unable to be here today said, we want to give these people an opportunity to give public testimony, and we've done that. So to extend this, I'm not willing to do that, Mr. Chair, today, because I know you're going to ask me to make a motion. But I won't extend the public hearing. Either we make a decision today,
I wasn't in favor of it. That was my opening
Okay.
comments.
Okay. That's pretty much the things that I was concerned about. I just wanted to make a comment. This is about the dock, not about the access in general.
So bottom line, I haven't heard anything either written or oral testimony that I find compelling to change, and I'll be in favor of supporting the hearings officer's decision.
I am too, but I was wondering, is there anything in the conditions that this dock is for non-motorized? Call that, I was looking for that.
The dock isn't limited to that.
Okay.
There are
Obviously, the restrictions of getting a motorized,
As an access,
yeah,
it's
there's not a
open.
launch there.
No.
Right, you can't launch a boat there, that's what I'm
Limitations
saying.
like
It's just,
that.
it's kayaks and it's gonna be small craft.
That's right.
Yeah. Right, okay. All right, so let me go back up here to see what. So, I want to ask Brandon and legal counsel, is there a way we can close the public hearing but leave the record open? Or close the public hearing and approve? I guess we wouldn't leave the record open if I'm going to make the motion to approve, right? We're going to close the record.
Right.
Correct, if you're making a decision.
Yep. So, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we close the public hearing and approve, or I guess in this case, this is a denial of the appeal, correct? Can you help me out, legal
Yes.
counsel?
I think you would close the public hearing and adopt the hearings officer's findings and decision.
So, Mr. Chair, that's the motion I'll make, close the public hearing and adopt the hearings officer's decision.
All right, and I'll second it. So it's moved and seconded to close the public hearing and adopt the hearings officer's decision, including conditions. Is that acceptable? All right, any further discussion? I hear none, so I'll call a question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, thank
Thank
you.
you, Commissioners.
The last item to do this morning is to read the places we'll be together. Brenda, would you hand down those to be signed?
Want me to read this?
No, I'd be happy to,
Okay, good.
unless I fog up my glasses. Start those. All right, today, Wednesday, the 9th of December, we have a Marion County Housing Authority meeting, Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. And then a virtual meeting at 4 o'clock with FEMA for local officials having to do with Burn in East County. Tomorrow morning, 7:30 to 8:30, Kaiser, Marion County meeting. It'll be a different place. It'll be the Kaiser City Hall lobby, 9:30 Chamawa Road, Kaiser. Thursday, the 10th, 8:30 to 9:30, a fire update, Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. Friday, 10 to 12, it's the Association of AOCC Annual Membership Meeting, and that'll be a virtual meeting. Next Tuesday, I should say it's not on this list, but there's AOC meetings Monday that we'll be at, primarily legislative at 1 o'clock, and that's at the local community center. And then, so Tuesday, the 15th, 8:30 to 9, calendar review, Silverton Conference Room. Really? Rebecca? Or Commissioner Boardroom, doesn't matter. We'll clear it up. 9 o'clock on the 15th, 9 to 11, Management Update, Commissioners Boardroom. Tuesday, the 15th, 12:30 to 1:30, Health and Human Services Policy Group, Commissioners Boardroom. Tuesday, the 15th, 1:30 to 3, a work session on the 2020 Fair Review. That'll be in the Commissioners Boardroom. Next Wednesday at 9 o'clock, our regular weekly board meeting. They'll be here in the, that must be mistyped too, it'll be in the Senator hearing room here. All right. And then also Wednesday, the 16th, 10:30, work session, public health boards, meetings, and coalitions, also in the Commissioners' boardroom. And the final one next Wednesday, 4 o'clock to 5, a FEMA briefing for local officials. That'll be a virtual meeting. So I think that takes care of the business we had this morning. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Brandon, you're all set for next Wednesday, or next Tuesday, right? I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
For our meeting, our presentation with the BIPOP?
Sure, let me know.
Yeah, we'll talk. Okay, good, thank you.
Mr. Fenimore stayed for the entire meeting. I was
Yeah,
hoping he had something else to add. What?
Well, I think it's probably,
Oh, just to talk to Jen? You couldn't talk to us?
I thought it was because he wanted to comment on how close the Beavers came to coming back again last weekend. Shucks.
Could have, for all the people missing. All right, anything else?
Yeah, without our star running back
Yeah.
and quarterback and, yeah.
Get picked off on your first pass, that's kind of bad, but
So,
seem to recover. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's good, we're getting some business done. Always love to do the people's business. And, what's happening? What's happening?
Things are winding up. We had a retreat last Friday and tried to pass out different interests and duties, and I hope we'll get that squared away, but it went well. I enjoyed the time.
We'll get there. Didn't happen as quick as my first meeting with you.
Well, there's a lot of stuff. So many issues.
We'll get there. Yeah.
I can make you say this. Could you, I often refer to the people say, is that county commissioner, is that a real job? And I said, well, yeah. And you kind of have to have a little touch of just about anything possible that humans do, from science to law. And isn't it something?
It's more than a full-time job, really. Think about your responsibility and, yeah, you touch so many parts of people's lives. And you've been doing it for, what, 16 or is it 17?
It's a little past 17 now,
A
actually.
little past 17 years.
They didn't pay me for those. I guess I just threw that in those first couple of weeks. It's always troubled me.
And of those 17 years, I've been a resident of Marion County the whole time. I moved from Polk County, let's see, when was that? Back in 98 to Marion County, I think. Yeah, it was 10 years, almost 10 years in Polk County. And,
So I got to interrupt you there because Mike Probst was your commissioner there in Polk County. To me, he's the quintessential archetypical county commissioner. And when I try to act like someone, it's him, just so you know.
yeah, I remember the name. But here's the thing, I remember as a citizen, before I even got into politics, I was just building a house and everybody was really good from Marion County. And then we did our LID, a local improvement district, on our road. And I'll never forget that the engineers came out and said, oh, this isn't gonna work, you can't do it because of this and that. And we just kept working with them and built some curbs on the road. Said, hey, what if we built curbs here? Because they were worried about it the water going down into somebody's yard. And what about a retention pond to carry it? You know, we just kept giving ideas, and they said, well, it's gonna cost more. Well, you know, keep it going. But I just remember, that was my first experience. My first experience in working with the commission, because Public Works was out there. It was Bill Worcester?
Worcester, yeah.
Worcester, yeah. He was roads or something at that time. Was he director?
Yes.
Public Works? He actually came out and met with us, kind of like Brian would, right? And I really felt like as a citizen that I was very well represented in the things that I needed to do. And you weren't on the board at that time yet, but I remember calling Patty saying, hey, I want to make sure we're doing this right, and this is going to come before you, and whatever information you need. And And then when I got to the legislature a few years later, I guess it was probably 7 years later, it got appointed. You and Patty and Janet appointed me. And I'll never forget, I know we're gonna have a day to talk about this, like in a couple weeks. I'll just never forget when you go through that appointment process, all these people that you know in the community are calling and sending emails and all that other stuff. And I had known Patty because I'd worked with her on that road project. I knew Janet because Janet's daughter was actually my daughter's music teacher in middle school. So I knew of them. I didn't know you. And I remember calling you and saying, Sam, I think I called you by your first. I said, Sam, I know I'm supposed to call you. I'm supposed to meet with you before this appointment process so you can get to know me. And you go, yeah, well, I met with the other, so I probably should meet with you too. This is typical Sam's response, right? After, I should meet with you too. And I remember we sat there in that coffee shop. That was the first time we talked. You asked me a couple questions, and then we started talking about fishing and hunting and all that important stuff in life. And I had no clue what you did. I had no clue what a commissioner did. Just other than the stuff that I remember getting the LID district done and all that. But since my time here with you, and when I got appointed to the state rep, you guys appointed me, I remember, I'll never forget this. One of the things that you all three said was, we feel like we have a good relationship with our cities, our local governments. We work really well. But we don't have that great of a relationship with the state. And I'll never forget that when I went there. And that's when I started every session. I always had those Friday morning coffees. And you would come, Janet would come often, Patty so-so. And opened up that line of communications to get to know a lot more about what you did. And just that relationship that we started that was back in 2005 until I got here in 2014 with you and Janet and Patty, really opened my eyes to what a board member at this level does. And what's amazing is there's only 3 of us. And the decisions that we make and how it impacts the lives of 340,000 citizens is amazing. So, Sam, I know that people that are out there that know you respect you greatly, but over those last, from 2005 until I got here, and then I actually got to work with you for the last 6+ years, has been an amazing journey, and I will appreciate you always, and you're going to be a guy that I'm going to call on when you leave here and say, can you give me some advice on this one? So thank you so much. And I know we're going to talk about this.
Be able to call and talk about issues. But before you ended, people are probably bored, and thank you for the nice things. But I'll tell you and I probably never did before, but when it came time to appoint you as commissioner, the overwhelming thing that made a difference to me were those very meetings as a state rep that you held early in the morning on your own time, didn't have to make sure we were involved in as many and had input on as many of the issues. That was wonderful. Nobody else does that for us or has since or cared as much. So that told me that you, inclusive, try to make things work, want to develop relationships, the kind of guy I want to work with. So that was, just so you know.
Yeah,
it all came around.
It made a huge difference to me in viewing policies that were coming.
And you had good coffee every morning. Let's be serious. Donuts a little weak.
Well, that's because I had a restaurant that I was operating downstairs for the first few years I was there.
All right.
All right.
We bored everybody enough. We're getting closer to Christmas. It's time slipping by. And I wish this vaccine thing would come sooner. I'd like to hear talk about, you can kind of see a possibility. I hope it works and it comes sooner. And that's all for today.